What kind of love asks a father to abandon the person who first taught him how to stay? Before this story begins, where in the world are you watching from, and what time is it there right now? Somewhere beneath the crystal lights of a Chicago ballroom, Marcus Bennett was about to answer a question no decent father should ever have been asked. The Sterling Foundation Gala had been designed to look flawless. White roses stood in tall glass vases. A string quartet played near the marble staircase. Men in tailored tuxedos spoke softly about investments, while women in evening gowns smiled beneath the steady glow of cameras. Every detail had been polished until the room felt less like a celebration and more like a promise that nothing uncomfortable would be allowed inside. Then Evelyn Sterling turned toward Marcus and broke that promise with 7 words. "Choose me or your daughter." The sentence did not rise above the music. It did not need to. Conversations stopped one by one. A waiter froze with a silver tray balanced against his palm. Richard Cole, chairman of the board, lowered his glass without taking his eyes off Marcus. Near the edge of the dance floor stood 10-year-old Ava Bennett, wearing a navy blue dress and holding a handmade model of the solar system against her chest. One of Saturn's paper rings had come loose. It hung by a thin strip of tape, trembling whenever she breathed. Marcus saw that before he saw anything else. Not the cameras, not the investors, not the expression on Evelyn's face. His daughter. Her shoulders had drawn inward. Her yellow backpack rested beside her shoes, too ordinary for a room like this, yet somehow more honest than everything surrounding it. Marcus crossed the few feet between them and knelt. His dark suit pulled tight across his shoulders as he carefully pressed the paper ring back into place. Ava looked at him, searching his face for the answer adults often tried to hide from children. He gave her none of the fear in the room, only steadiness. "Dad," she whispered, "did I do something wrong?" Marcus adjusted the strap of her backpack, though it did not need adjusting. It gave his hands something gentle to do. "No, sweetheart," he said. "You didn't." Behind him, Evelyn stood beneath a chandelier worth more than Marcus earned in several years. Her phone continued vibrating inside her silver clutch. She did not reach for it. For once, the entire world she controlled had gone still, waiting for one man she could not command. Marcus rose slowly. He turned toward her, calm enough to make the silence feel heavier. There was no anger in his face. That would have been easier for Evelyn. Anger could be dismissed. Anger could be blamed. But dignity had nowhere to hide. "Ava was here before the money," he said. "Before the invitations. Before anyone in this room knew my name." Evelyn's lips parted, but no words came. Marcus looked at her the way a person looks at a door he had once believed might lead home. "And if loving you requires me to teach my daughter that she can be left behind," he continued, "then you never understood the man you asked to choose." 3 days earlier, none of them knew the night would end this way. 3 days earlier, Ava had been sitting at a small kitchen table, building planets from painted foam balls, while Marcus stood behind her trying to fix a crooked braid before the school bus arrived. 3 mornings earlier, the Bennett apartment smelled of burnt toast, cinnamon oatmeal, and the black coffee Marcus had forgotten beside the sink. Sunlight pushed through the blinds in narrow gold lines, falling across a kitchen table covered with painted foam planets, glue sticks, and scraps of blue construction paper. Ava sat in the middle of it all, holding Jupiter in one hand while trying to fasten a thin wire around Saturn with the other. Her yellow backpack waited by the door. One zipper was broken. Marcus had repaired it with a small brass key ring the night before. "Hold still," he said, standing behind her with a comb between his teeth. Ava tilted her head as he tried to divide her hair into 3 even sections. "You said that 4 minutes ago." Marcus removed the comb. "Good work takes patience. Mom used to do it faster." The words were not meant to hurt. That made them hurt more. Marcus looked at their reflection in the dark kitchen window. Ava had her mother's eyes. Wide. Careful. Always noticing what adults hoped she would miss. "Your mother had better hands," he said. "I have determination." Ava smiled. "You have crooked braids." "That is also true." He finished the second braid, stepped back, and examined his work with the seriousness of a man inspecting an electrical panel. One side was slightly higher than the other. Ava reached up, felt the difference, and laughed softly. The sound changed the room. It always did. Marcus poured the cold coffee into a travel mug and checked the clock above the stove. The school bus would arrive in 8 minutes. His shift at the community center began in 40. Between those two facts sat everything that mattered. Lunch packed. Permission slip signed. Science model protected. Daughter reminded that she was loved. He moved through the routine without rushing her, even when time tightened around them. Ava slid Saturn into a cardboard box lined with an old dish towel. Do you think Evelyn will come Thursday? Marcus paused with the lid in his hands. Evelyn Sterling had said she would try. In her world, try could mean a meeting moved, a flight delayed, or a promise quietly erased by something more profitable. Ava watched him closely. She knows it starts at 6:30, she added. I wrote it on the invitation twice. Marcus closed the box carefully. She knows. But do you think she will come? He could have offered comfort. A quick yes. A hopeful maybe. Children were often given soft answers because adults disliked the weight of honest ones. Marcus had never believed uncertainty should be disguised as a promise. He crouched beside her chair. People should only promise what they are ready to protect, he said. Evelyn has a lot pulling at her right now. Ava looked down at the small paper moon taped beside Earth. We are not pulling. No, Marcus said gently. We are staying. The bus horn sounded outside. Ava stood, lifted the box with both hands, then stopped at the door. I saved her a seat next to you. Marcus looked at the kitchen table. 3 chairs. One for him, one for Ava, and the third chair she had recently begun pulling closer at dinner, even on nights when Evelyn never came. That was thoughtful, he said. Ava nodded as though the matter had already been settled. Nobody should have to sit alone when they are nervous. Then she hurried down the stairs toward the waiting bus, leaving Marcus in the doorway with his coffee cooling in his hand and a truth he would not understand until it was almost too late. Ava was not asking Evelyn to enter their lives. She had already made room. Across town, Evelyn Sterling entered the 47th floor conference room with 12 unread messages, 2 missed calls, and a schedule that had already changed 3 times before 9 in the morning. The glass walls overlooked downtown Chicago, where traffic moved in slow silver lines beneath a pale sky. Inside, everything was quiet enough to hear the soft vibration of her phone against the polished table. No one spoke until she sat. Richard Cole waited at the far end with a folder open in front of him. He had the patient expression of a man who preferred pressure to sound like advice. The merger team has concerns, he said. Evelyn removed her coat and placed it over the chair behind her. The merger team always has concerns. These are personal. He slid a printed page across the table. It showed a photograph taken outside the community center 2 weeks earlier. Marcus was carrying Ava's science supplies while Evelyn held the door. Ava was laughing at something neither adult seemed to notice. The image looked ordinary. That was what made Richard dislike it. A photograph of me opening a door is not a corporate crisis, Evelyn said. Not by itself. Richard folded his hands. But investors build stories from small things. They see the chief executive officer of Sterling Health Group becoming involved with an employee, a maintenance supervisor, a single father. Evelyn's eyes sharpened. Say what you are actually trying to say. Richard glanced toward the attorneys seated along the wall. None of them looked up. They are questioning whether your judgment is becoming divided. Her phone vibrated again. This time, the screen showed Ava's name beside a photograph of a hand-drawn invitation. Thursday, 6:30 in the evening. Front row. If possible. Evelyn turned the phone face down. Marcus has never asked me for money, influence, or access. That may not matter. It matters to me. Richard leaned back. This company is about to finalize the largest acquisition in its history. You cannot afford complications. The words settled over the table. Complications. Not Marcus. Not Ava. Not 2 people who had made space for her in a kitchen smaller than her office. Just a category to be managed. Evelyn looked through the glass at the city below. For one brief second, the skyline disappeared, and she was 11 years old again, standing behind a curtain in a school auditorium with a paper star pinned to her blue costume. Her teacher had told her to watch the 3rd row. Her father had promised he would be there. The seat remained empty through the entire performance. He arrived after the lights came on, still holding his briefcase, explaining that a meeting had run long. Evelyn had learned something that night. Important people did not wait. Important people were the reason others waited. She had spent 28 years proving she would never be the one left behind again. The foundation gala is Friday, Richard continued. The board expects clarity before then. Evelyn turned back toward him. Clarity about what? about whether this relationship is temporary. She should have ended the conversation there. She should have told him that Marcus and Ava were not line items on a risk report. Instead, she reached for the folder. "Leave it with me." Richard stood, satisfied by the smallest sign of hesitation. One by one, the others followed him out. When the door closed, Evelyn picked up her phone and opened Ava's message. Beneath the photograph of the invitation were 7 words. "I saved you a seat beside Dad." Evelyn stared at them until the screen dimmed. Then another call came in, and she answered it before the silence could ask anything of her. Evelyn arrived at the Bennett apartment on Thursday evening with 14 minutes before her next call, and no idea why the narrow hallway made her more nervous than any boardroom ever had. The building was old but clean, with faded blue paint along the stairwell and the faint smell of laundry soap drifting from somewhere below. She stood outside apartment 3B holding a small bakery box she had bought on the way, then looked at it as if it had betrayed her. Marcus opened the door before she could knock a second time. He wore a gray work shirt with the sleeves rolled to his forearms, and a dark smudge of machine grease marked one cuff. "You came," he said. There was no accusation in his voice. That made the words feel honest. "I said I would try." Marcus stepped aside. Ava has been watching the clock since 5:45. The apartment was smaller than Evelyn remembered, though she had only seen the front room once. A worn couch faced a bookshelf filled with repair manuals, children's novels, and 3 framed photographs. The radiator clicked near the window. On the refrigerator, colorful magnets held school notices, a grocery list, and a drawing of 3 people standing beneath an enormous yellow sun. Ava hurried in from the kitchen with a strip of paper in her hands. "I made this for tomorrow," she said. It was a place card, folded carefully down the middle. Evelyn Sterling was written across the front in blue marker, surrounded by tiny silver stars. Beneath her name, Ava had added a smaller sentence. "Someone Dad trusts." Evelyn's fingers tightened around the card. "This is beautiful. You can put it by your plate." Ava pointed toward the kitchen table. 3 chairs stood around it. One had been pulled closer than the others. On the back rested a navy blue sweater, neatly folded as if someone had expected Evelyn to forget she was often cold. Marcus noticed where she was looking. Ava planned the seating. "You sit by Dad," Ava explained. "I sit across from both of you, so nobody has to turn around." The simplicity of it unsettled Evelyn. No negotiation, no strategy, just a child-making room. She placed the bakery box on the counter and glanced around. A stack of utility bills had been arranged beside a chipped ceramic bowl. Each envelope was marked with a date in Marcus's careful handwriting. Near the sink sat a white coffee cup with a thin gold line around the rim. Evelyn recognized it. She had used it weeks earlier during a late visit after the community center fundraiser. Marcus had kept it, cleaned it, left it beside his black mug as if her return had never seemed impossible. Then she saw the photograph on the bookshelf. Marcus stood beside a woman with warm eyes and a wide smile, while a much younger Ava rested between them. Evelyn did not need to ask who she was. The quiet in the room answered first. "Her name was Danielle," Marcus said. "Ava's mother." Evelyn nodded. "She looks kind." She was. Ava came closer and looked at the photograph too. She liked people who kept promises. Marcus lowered his eyes, but his voice remained steady. "She did." Evelyn felt the place card in her hand grow heavier. Her phone vibrated inside her purse. Once, then again. Richard Cole's name lit the screen. She ignored it. For 3 seconds, then 5. The phone stopped, only to ring again. Marcus turned toward the stove, giving her the privacy she had not asked for. Ava watched her with quiet hope. Evelyn answered. "I have 2 minutes," she said, stepping toward the window. Richard's voice came through sharp and controlled. The merger council needed approval. The board wanted confirmation. The gala seating had changed. The questions arrived faster than her answers. When Evelyn finally ended the call, the warmth in the apartment seemed farther away. Ava was placing the extra chair back beneath the table. "You have to go," she said. It was not a question. Evelyn looked at the handmade place card, then at Marcus, who did not ask her to stay. "I am sorry," she said. "Tomorrow is complicated." Marcus picked up his coffee. Tomorrow is always complicated for people who have not decided what matters yet. Evelyn left with the place card inside her purse and the bakery box still unopened on the counter. Behind her, the apartment door closed softly. Nothing had been taken from her. Still, As she walked toward the stairs, it felt as if she had just stepped away from the only room where no one had asked her to prove her worth. By Friday evening, the ballroom at the Sterling Foundation Gala glowed like a place where uncertainty had been forbidden. Crystal chandeliers scattered, light across white tablecloths. A string quartet played near the marble staircase. Waiters moved between donors carrying silver trays, while cameras waited beside a wall covered with the Sterling name. Evelyn stood at the center of it all in a dark blue gown, answering questions about hospitals, scholarships, and the merger that had consumed nearly every hour of her week. Her smile was precise. Her posture was perfect. Only the handmade place card inside her purse felt real. Marcus arrived with Ava shortly after 7. He wore the same black suit he used for church services and school ceremonies. Ava walked beside him in a navy dress, holding her science model against her chest. She had repaired Saturn with fresh tape, but one paper ring still leaned slightly to the left. Evelyn saw them from across the room. For a moment, the voices around her softened into distance. Ava noticed her and smiled. Not carefully, not politely, fully. She lifted one hand in a small wave. Evelyn almost moved toward them. Then Richard Cole stepped into her path. The investors are asking questions, he said beneath the music. Let them ask. They already are. Richard glanced toward Marcus, then toward the reporters near the stage. You have allowed a private situation to become visible. Evelyn's jaw tightened. He is my guest. He is also an employee of a foundation your company controls. Marcus does not work for me. That distinction will not survive tomorrow morning. Before Evelyn could answer, the master of ceremonies called her name. Applause rose through the ballroom. She stepped onto the stage, delivered prepared remarks about community, responsibility, and building a future where every child mattered. The words sounded polished. They also sounded far away from the chair Ava had saved for her. When Evelyn finished, Richard joined her near the front table. He raised his glass and addressed several board members loudly enough for nearby reporters to hear. Perhaps Miss Sterling can finally clarify whether her recent personal interest will affect the direction of the foundation. The room changed. Not completely. Just enough. Conversation slowed. Heads turned. Marcus stood near Ava, one hand resting lightly on the back of her chair. Evelyn looked at Richard. His expression remained calm. He had placed the decision in public because he believed public pressure would make her choose power. This is not the place, she said. Then perhaps there should never have been a place for it, Richard replied. Evelyn felt every expectation in the room closing around her. The merger, the board, her father's old voice telling her that hesitation was weakness, the empty seat in the third row of a school auditorium, the fear that loving Marcus meant surrendering control to a life she could not schedule. Ava approached with the place card in her hand. I brought this for your table, she said. Evelyn looked down at the silver stars drawn around her name. Someone Dad trusts. Her chest tightened. She should have thanked her. She should have taken the card. Instead, fear reached her mouth before kindness could. Marcus, she said, her voice low but clear. I cannot keep doing this halfway. He studied her face. Doing what? Trying to build something with you while every decision begins with what Ava needs. The child's smile disappeared. Marcus did not move. Evelyn heard herself continue, even as part of her wanted to stop. I need to know whether there will ever be room for me first. Silence moved outward through the ballroom. Richard lowered his glass. The cameras remained pointed toward the stage. Evelyn looked at Marcus and said the words that would follow her long after the music ended. Choose me or your daughter. Ava's fingers tightened around the place card. The paper bent down the middle. Marcus looked at his child before he looked at Evelyn. He crossed the few feet between them, knelt, and gently straightened the damaged ring around Saturn. Dad? Ava whispered. Did I make her leave? His face softened. No, sweetheart. You did nothing wrong. He adjusted her backpack strap, then rose. There was no anger in his eyes. Only a sadness so steady that Evelyn could not defend herself against it. My daughter is not standing between us, he said. She is standing beside me. There is a difference. No one spoke. Marcus removed his guest badge and placed it on the table beside Richard's glass. Ava was here before the money, before the invitations, and before anyone in this room knew my name. He met Evelyn's gaze. If loving you requires me to teach her that she can be left behind, then you never understood the man you asked to choose. He took Ava's hand and walked toward the exit. No one applauded. No one stopped them. The ballroom simply watched as the most dignified person in the room left without raising his voice. On the table, the folded place card slowly opened, revealing the empty seat Ava had made for Evelyn. The first snow of the season had begun to fall by the time Marcus pulled away from the hotel. White flakes crossed the windshield and vanished beneath the wipers. Ava sat in the back seat with the damaged solar system resting beside her, both hands folded tightly in her lap. For several blocks, neither of them spoke. The city moved around them in blurred lights and quiet traffic. Marcus kept both hands on the steering wheel. His face remained calm, but his coffee had gone untouched in the cup holder. "Dad," Ava said at last, "did I make her leave?" Marcus slowed near the curb and pulled into an empty parking space beneath a street lamp. He turned off the engine. Without the heater running, the car became very still. He faced his daughter. "Look at me, sweetheart." Ava lifted her eyes. "Children are never responsible for the choices adults make," he said. "You did not take anything from Evelyn. You offered her a place with us." Ava looked toward the paper planets. Maybe she did not want the place. Marcus considered the question before answering. Maybe she wanted it so much that it frightened her. Then why did she make it sound like I was in the way? His expression softened. Because sometimes people speak from an old hurt before they speak from the truth. That does not make what they say right. Ava pressed one finger against Saturn's loose ring. "Are you mad at her?" "I am disappointed." "Is that worse?" Marcus looked through the windshield at the falling snow. "It lasts longer." He reached back and straightened the blanket beneath her science model. "But disappointment does not decide who we become. What we do next does." Ava leaned against the seat, no longer crying, but not ready to smile. Marcus started the engine and drove home. Across the city, the gala continued without warmth. Evelyn remained beside the table long after Marcus and Ava disappeared through the ballroom doors. Richard spoke near her shoulder about controlling the narrative, but his words sounded like rain against glass. She looked down at the handmade place card. The fold had opened. Her name faced upward beneath the silver stars. "Someone Dad trusts." Evelyn picked it up with careful fingers. "We need to discuss tomorrow morning," Richard said. She did not answer. Inside the women's lounge, away from the cameras, she opened her purse to put the card away. Something was written on the back. The letters were smaller and less even than the words on the front. "You can sit with us even if you are nervous." Evelyn read the sentence twice. Then a third time. Ava had not been protecting her father from Evelyn. She had been protecting Evelyn from the loneliness she recognized without understanding. The child Evelyn had treated like a rival had already made room for her. That realization followed her to the penthouse. The rooms were silent when she entered. The city glittered beyond the windows, cold and distant. She set her phone on the kitchen counter. It vibrated with messages from attorneys, board members, and Richard. For the first time in years, she turned it off. The silence that followed did not feel peaceful. It felt honest. Evelyn placed Ava's card beside an untouched glass of water and sat across from the empty chair. She remembered a school auditorium, a paper star, and a seat that had remained empty until the lights came on. All her life, she had feared becoming the person left behind. Tonight, beneath chandeliers and cameras, she had become the person who asked a child to disappear. Evelyn lowered her head. There was no audience now. No board. No merger. Only 7 handwritten words from a 10-year-old girl who had understood belonging better than she ever had. Monday morning arrived without ceremony. Marcus was already inside the community center before sunrise, checking a failing boiler while the building still smelled of floor wax and yesterday's coffee. The old machine answered him with a tired rattle. He tightened one valve, wiped his hands on a gray cloth, and listened until the sound settled. Machines were easier than people. They usually revealed what was wrong when someone paid attention long enough. At 8:15, the receptionist appeared in the doorway holding a thick white envelope. "A courier brought this for you," she said. He needed a signature. Marcus recognized the Sterling Foundation seal before he touched it. Inside was a formal agreement prepared by Richard Cole. The language was polite. The meaning was not. Marcus would receive enough money to pay every overdue bill, replace his aging car, and cover Ava's education through college. In return, he would resign from the community center, avoid all contact with Evelyn, and never discuss what had happened at the gala. Richard had reduced a father, a child, and a painful evening to terms and conditions. Marcus read the document twice. Then he folded it and placed it inside his work bag. He did not tear it up. Pride was easy when the rent was paid. Dignity became more complicated when a child's future had a number attached to it. That evening, he sat at the kitchen table after Ava went to bed. The apartment was quiet except for the radiator clicking near the window. 3 envelopes waited beside his coffee. Electricity, car insurance, a medical bill from Ava's winter asthma visit. Marcus opened the agreement again. The amount printed on the first page seemed larger beneath the weak kitchen light. He imagined a safer neighborhood, a reliable car, a college fund Ava would never have to worry about. For one dangerous moment, the offer looked less like an insult and more like relief. Then he noticed the science model on the counter. Saturn's ring had come loose again. Beside it rested the empty place card Ava had made for Evelyn. Marcus thought about the question his daughter had asked in the car. Did I make her leave? If he signed the document, the answer would change. Ava would learn that wealthy people could remove someone from a family by naming the right price. She would learn that her father's presence was negotiable. Marcus closed his eyes. Years earlier, in a hospital room filled with afternoon light, Danielle had held his hand and made him promise one thing. Do not let her wonder whether you stayed, she had whispered. He had carried that sentence through every late shift, every unpaid bill, and every morning when grief made getting out of bed feel heavier than work. Marcus reached for a pen. The next day, Richard found the unsigned agreement on his desk. Across the final page, Marcus had written one sentence in careful black ink. Her future cannot be purchased with her father's absence. Evelyn learned about it before noon. Richard entered her office angry, calling Marcus ungrateful and reckless. Evelyn barely heard him. She looked at the return document and understood what Marcus had done. He had refused the money, but he had also refused revenge. He had not spoken to reporters. He had not embarrassed the foundation. He had protected Ava without trying to destroy Evelyn. Even wounded, he had remained the man she had failed to see. Prepare an emergency board meeting, Evelyn said. Richard stopped. For what purpose? She placed the agreement back inside its envelope. Her voice was quiet now. Certain. To remove every person who believed a child could be treated as a public relations problem. Richard stared at her. You could lose the merger. Evelyn looked toward the city beyond the glass. For years, she had measured every decision by what it might cost her. Marcus had measured his by what it would teach his daughter. Then let it cost me, she said. The emergency board meeting began at 4 that afternoon, 12 floors above the city and far from the rooms where the foundation claimed to serve families. Richard Cole sat at the end of the polished table with 3 attorneys beside him. Evelyn entered alone. She carried no folder, no prepared statement, only the returned agreement Marcus had refused to sign. The directors watched her take her seat. Richard spoke first. Before this becomes unnecessarily dramatic, I suggest we review the financial consequences. Evelyn placed the envelope in the center of the table. The financial consequences are not the first thing we are reviewing. Richard leaned back. Then what is? The fact that someone acting under my authority offered a father money to disappear from his daughter's life. A silence moved around the room. One director lowered his eyes. Another reached for a glass of water and did not drink. Richard folded his hands. The agreement protected the company. It protected me from embarrassment, Evelyn said. There is a difference. He reminded her of the merger, the investors, and the millions of dollars tied to public confidence. His voice remained smooth. That was how power often defended itself. Not with anger, but with language designed to make cruelty sound necessary. Evelyn listened until he finished. Then she told the board exactly what she had said at the gala. She did not soften the words. She did not blame exhaustion, pressure, or Richard. I treated a child like an obstacle, she said. That was my choice. This agreement was another choice made by people who believed money could erase the harm. Richard's expression changed for the first time. You are placing the merger at risk over one employee. Evelyn looked directly at him. His name is Marcus Bennett. His daughter's name is Ava. They are not risks. She removed Richard from all foundation oversight, ordered an independent review of the agreement, and directed the communications team to release a statement taking full responsibility for her conduct. Several directors objected. 2 threatened to resign. 1 warned that the acquisition might collapse before morning. Evelyn signed the resolution anyway. Her hand did not shake. By 6:30, financial reporters had begun calling. By 7, the company's legal counsel had sent 4 urgent messages. Evelyn turned her phone off before leaving the building. She drove herself to the Bennett apartment through light snow, passing the bakery where she had bought the unopened box the night before the gala. This time, she brought nothing. No flowers. No check. No expensive apology disguised as generosity. Marcus opened the door after her second knock. He wore an old brown sweater and held a dish towel in one hand. His expression did not harden when he saw her, but it did not soften either. "Ava is finishing dinner," he said. Evelyn nodded. "May I speak to her?" Marcus studied her for a long moment. "You may ask." Ava sat at the kitchen table beside her repaired solar system. The third chair was no longer pulled close. Evelyn remained standing until Ava looked up. "I came to apologize," she said. Ava glanced at Marcus, then back at Evelyn. "Dad said apologies do not make people forget. He is right." Evelyn slowly lowered herself so they were at eye level. "I treated you like you were standing between your father and me. But you were the person making room for me. I was afraid, and I made that fear your burden. That was wrong." Ava touched the edge of Saturn's paper ring. "Were you afraid of me?" "No," Evelyn said. "I was afraid that your father would always love you more." Ava considered this with the seriousness only a child could give it. "He is supposed to." The answer landed without cruelty. Evelyn nodded. "Yes, he is." She told Ava that she did not expect forgiveness. She did not mention the board meeting or what it might cost her. Apologies that carried receipts were still transactions. Ava looked at the empty chair, then at the handmade place card resting near the refrigerator. "Are you still nervous?" she asked. Evelyn swallowed. "Very." Ava slid the card across the table but kept her hand on it. "You cannot sit close yet." "I understand. You can stand by the door." Evelyn accepted the boundary as carefully as she would have accepted a gift. Marcus said nothing. He simply returned to the stove and lowered the heat beneath a pot of soup. Evelyn remained near the doorway while father and daughter finished dinner. No one invited her to stay. No one told her to leave. For the first time in her life, she understood that trust was not a seat someone owed her. It was a place she would have to earn by showing up without demanding to be chosen. 3 months later, the snow had melted from the sidewalks, leaving Chicago washed in the pale light of early spring. Ava's school auditorium smelled of pencil shavings, dust, and the coffee parents carried in paper cups. Hand-painted planets hung from the ceiling on clear string. Folding chairs filled the room in uneven rows. Marcus sat in the front with his black coffee resting between his boots and Ava's yellow backpack beside him. The chair to his right was empty. He had not saved it for anyone. He had simply left space. On stage, Ava stood behind a small table with her repaired solar system. Saturn's paper ring still tilted slightly, but she had stopped trying to make it perfect. "Gravity is not only about pulling things closer," she explained to the audience. Her voice trembled on the first sentence, then steadied. "It is also about keeping things from drifting away." Marcus smiled. Ava found him beneath the bright auditorium lights, and her shoulders relaxed. Then the rear door opened. Evelyn stepped inside wearing a simple gray coat and low black shoes. No assistant followed her. No camera waited outside. Her phone was nowhere in her hands. She paused when she saw the crowded room, then quietly took a seat in the last row. Marcus noticed her. He did not wave. He did not look away. He only moved his coffee a few inches from the empty chair beside him, as though making room for a possibility rather than a promise. Evelyn had spent the past 3 months learning the difference. She attended community center meetings without speaking unless asked. She restored the scholarship funding the board had planned to cut. She listened when parents described long bus rides, medical bills, and jobs that did not allow them to leave early for school events. She never mentioned what those decisions had cost the company. She never asked Marcus whether her efforts were enough. Some weeks, he spoke to her for 10 minutes. Some weeks, only 2. Ava watched all of it. Children often trusted patterns before explanations. On stage, she pointed toward the small blue Earth. "Some planets stay in orbit because they finally learn what not to pull away from," she said. Evelyn lowered her eyes. Marcus looked back at her. This time, she allowed herself a small smile. When the presentation ended, the room filled with applause. Ava hurried from the stage carrying Saturn. In both hands, she reached Marcus first. He hugged her carefully so the model would not bend. "You were steady," he said. "I was terrified." Those can happen at the same time. Ava glanced toward the back row. Evelyn remained beside her chair, waiting. She did not approach until Ava nodded. You came, Ava said. I said I would, Evelyn answered. And this time, I protected the promise. Ava studied her face, then held out the folding chair assigned to the next presentation. You can sit closer next time. Evelyn accepted it with both hands. I would like that. Outside, families gathered beneath the school awning while a light rain darkened the pavement. Marcus stood beside Evelyn as Ava showed another student how she had fixed Saturn's ring. For a while, neither adult spoke. The silence no longer felt like punishment. It felt like a place where truth could stand without being interrupted. The merger closed, Evelyn said at last. Without Richard. Marcus nodded. I heard. I thought losing control would destroy everything. Did it? She looked through the glass doors at Ava. No. It showed me what was still worth building. Marcus took a slow drink of coffee. Trust takes longer than a board vote. I know. And Ava comes first. She should. Evelyn did not reach for him. She did not ask what they were now. She simply stood beside him while rain tapped softly against the awning. Then Ava ran over and placed her small hand between theirs. Marcus looked down. Evelyn waited. He opened his hand, and Ava guided Evelyn's fingers into it. The gesture was not forgiveness completed. It was forgiveness beginning. Months later, the third chair at the Bennett kitchen table was no longer kept beneath the window. It stood beside Marcus, close enough for conversation, but never placed above Ava's seat. Evelyn learned to arrive before dinner grew cold. She learned that love was not measured by who was chosen first, but by whether everyone felt safe enough to remain. Marcus never abandoned his daughter to prove his heart. He showed Evelyn that a good man's devotion was not a wall against love. It was the doorway into it. He did not choose between them. He taught them both. That real love would never ask him to.